HOA story time, misled by the property manager on the CC&Rs. Check out this video in podcast form by searching Austin Stories wherever you listen, or check the video description for a link. I purchased a condo in California about 2 years ago. When I was in escrow, I noticed that the CC&Rs said that the building couldn't have any hard surface floors installed above the first floor. This, for obvious reasons, was a problem for me, so I brought it up to my real estate agent. The listing agent told him that many units in the building above the first floor have hard surface floors, and that as long as we hired a contractor that was pre-vetted by the HOA board, we could install hard surface floors in our unit. To verify this, I called the property manager, who confirmed this was the case. He said that the CC&Rs were out of date, but that there was an approval process that involved the board. I asked him if he needed any information other than the contractor that I was hiring, and he said no. He specifically said the specs weren't necessary to get the project approved. He would email the board and hopefully have an approval for me within a few days. After a few days, the property manager reached out to my flooring contractor and gave him the start and end dates for the project. We had an elevator reserved just for the use of the flooring contractor. He also spoke to my real estate agent and confirmed that the flooring project was approved. This was before closing. I have an email from my real estate agent to the property manager confirming these details, and I also had a phone conversation with the property manager about what an appropriate underlayment would involve, seeing as how the building has no written flooring specs that have to be adhered to. Flash forward 6 months, and my property manager reached out to me about noise issues with my floors. He was demanding that we get the floors IIC tested because the downstairs neighbor was hearing various noises. Instead of complying immediately, we spoke to the downstairs neighbor, who said that she mentioned that she could hear our footsteps, but that was months before we received the email. She requested that the property manager listen to the noise to see if he thought that it was normal, and he declined. She said that she never formally requested a sound test and that she never spoke to the board about the issue. The noises weren't that noticeable, in her opinion, only different than what she was used to with the previous owners. The issue was ultimately resolved by putting down a few carpets. Coincidentally, or not, we received this email the same day that we asked about the procedure for joining the HOA board. Last month, we were dealing with water damage to our ceiling from a year-long roof leak. After an odd conversation with our property manager, who wouldn't give me a timetable for when repairs would be completed, I hired a mold remediation expert to come and assess the damage. He determined that there was likely mold in my ceiling, and he provided moisture readings to show that water had accumulated in the ceiling and hadn't dried after 2 weeks without rain. I sent this info to my property manager along with the quote that the mold remediation expert provided. During this exchange, where the property manager was trying to convince me not to talk to the board about the issue, he brought up my floors again. This time, however, he claimed that he had no knowledge of us installing hard surface floors and that he needed to know how and when we installed them. This made no sense. Even if he'd forgotten that we'd had them approved, he had been in the unit no less than 5 times to look at the leak in our ceiling. He also came to the unit when the contractors were cutting the floorboards because he thought they were being too loud. Because of this, we assembled all of the communications that we had had with our flooring contractor, real estate agent, and the property manager, around 60 pages of emails and text messages, and we went to the next HOA meeting. We asked if they were aware that we had hard surface floors, and they said no. They also said that they've never approved hard surface floors for any unit above the first floor, and if they had, it would have been reflected in the minutes. When we pointed out several other upper floor units that we know had hard surface floors installed within the last 3 years, they said that they'd have to investigate. They then went on to claim that they didn't believe that any of our communications with our property manager suggested that he approved the project, even though he replied to an email mentioning that we're moving forward after receiving his approval. And even if he had approved the project, it doesn't constitute an HOA board approval, so the floors were installed illegally. The property manager denies that he ever communicated with me about the floors, despite there being multiple texts and emails directed to him about the issue, and he claims that he either didn't see the parts mentioning the floors or he didn't receive the messages at all. At the meeting, they said that we'd have to change our floors back to carpet pending a vote, but we haven't received a formal notice to do so yet. I frankly have no idea how someone could look at the communications that we had with the building and determine that we weren't completely misled about having board approval. They claim that the CC&Rs are clear about hard surface floors not being allowed, but if the property manager tells me that they are allowed and that the CC&Rs are in the process of being updated, who am I to doubt him? Furthermore, I reached out to both approved flooring contractors and they told me that they've installed many hard surface floors above the first floor, 2 of them being my downstairs and next door neighbors. At this point, I'm just very confused and stressed about this whole situation. From my point of view, either the board is allowing people to install whatever floors they want, but pretend they don't know about it, or the property manager is approving projects without their knowledge. With a quick internet search, I was able to find 6 units that had hardwood floors, all above the first floor. It just seems unfair that I have to change my floors if other people are allowed to have them. I'm just at a loss because the floors I have installed were very expensive. Do you agree? Obviously, you have proof of the manager lying and then ignoring problems. So if you're required to get carpet, get the money out of the project manager or get an HOA on selective enforcement. Now, this is totally right. If you have the proof, you need to show that. He can't play dumb. It's his fault for messing up, not yours. You take him down. What would you do? If you want to get cool badges and see some videos early while supporting me and the channel, click the join button to become a member. Thanks. Insane neighbor story time. Me, a 28-year-old female, and my husband, a 29 male, have a neighbor who's a mid-40s male, he always wears baggy jeans that just sit under his bum, who lives a couple blocks from our house. He comes to our house with his large white dog often and stands in front of our gate looking into our yard without knocking or saying anything to let us know that he's even there. We were friendly in the beginning, until he did this repeatedly almost every other day for months. It started around August. One time, I was watering my garden, and I turned to see him staring into the yard from the other side of the gate, staring at me. After this, I put a privacy screen on our gate, but he didn't get the hint and still came to our house often, which most days I'm home alone because I work remotely. He would wait in front of our gate for 10 to 30 minutes at a time. Then my husband told him to stop doing that because it would set off our ring alarm. So he only started coming up to our gate momentarily, but then would stand at the end of our driveway and on our neighbor's driveway looking into our house, but still far enough from our cameras to detect him. His excuse for doing this is because he says his dog likes our dog. His dog would even eat the treats that our mailman would set on our packages on the days that he came by. Our dog does not like his dog. Now, even though he does not wait directly in front of our gate anymore, if he sees me walk my dog in the neighborhood, he knows the route I take, so he'll wait at the end of my route near my house, so I have to pass him when I walk by. He's basically waiting for me at the end of our walk, forcing an interaction while also not standing directly on our property. He's also driven by me when I walk my dog, and he'll purposely slow down to my walking pace. Once, he even honked at me to get my attention when I was trying to ignore him. Aside from my husband telling him to not hang out at our house, when I run into him on walks, I'll try my best to ignore him and avoid confrontation in hopes that he gets the hint. He makes me so uncomfortable, and I hate that I feel like I need to bluntly confront him so he gets the freaking hint, because apparently my husband telling him to stop sitting in front of our house and me ignoring him isn't enough of a signal that we don't appreciate him hovering and lingering around our home. Even several of our neighbors have asked us what the deal is with the guy and the big dog. Our neighbor also mentioned that he sees him stand by the school bus stop in our neighborhood in the morning when the kids are going to school. I've decided that the next time I see him, I'll confront him and I'll tell him to stop hovering around our home. If he continues to hover, I'm considering filing a restraining order. I don't want it to go to this extreme, but this man is very unsettling to me and makes me feel unsafe in my own neighborhood. I'd do something, restraining order or cops, something to lay your foot down and just stomp it down. That's what I say. What would you do? Neighbor from heck sits in his car all day right outside of my home office. I bought this house 9 months ago and have had nothing but problems with the neighbor directly next door. He's an unemployed alcoholic in his 60s, and this winter he has been sitting in his car in the driveway for hours every day. I'm talking 6 to 8 hours consistently. I don't even see him get up to go to the bathroom. Sometimes he sits out there until 11 at night. His headlights just blast into my house, and he's totally being a disturbing creep and dirtbag. The neighbor from heck driveway and mine isn't shared, but there's nothing between them, so my car is parked next to his. I work from home and my office is right by the driveway, so this is how I know about this crappy behavior and why it affects me so much. He sits there and just talks super loud on speakerphone, gets drunk, smokes cigarettes, he blasts music, and is probably doing some illegal substances. I'm sick of it. It's like there's a crappy parking attendant in my driveway at all times. There isn't much I can say to him at this point, as he isn't on my property, he is just right next to it. It's like when siblings fight and point a finger at each other, but then say, "I'm not touching you," even though they're all up in their space. His girlfriend owns the house, but doesn't live there in the week. When she comes back on the weekends, he won't sit in his car like he normally does, which is nice, but then the fighting starts. They scream at each other constantly, outside where I can clearly hear them, and they throw crap around their house. I really can't stand these jerks, and I hope they move soon. Apparently, they got another house in town and are painting and redecorating it, so I'm hoping they just sell this one next to me. I called my lawyer, who said that any retaliation will likely lead to further retaliation from them. I think the only solution is to call the cops when he's drinking in the driveway with his car on, or talk to his girlfriend and tell her about the behavior. I have heard her explicitly say that she doesn't want him sitting in the driveway in a screaming match that they had outside. Or could just build a fence so I don't have to look at his dumb butt wasting space. I needed to vent because I'm confused and ticked off. Is he doing this on purpose to try to screw with me, or is he generally this much of a loser that his car is the main hangout? Who does that? The lawyer says don't push it, but there's gotta be something that you can do with him messing with you like this. How would you handle it? Become the HOA president and uncover a very shady situation. So I've lived in our neighborhood for 10 years. Didn't pay attention to the HOA for most of that time. Now we have kids and we're disappointed with the condition of the common areas. I attended a meeting and ran for the board seat and became the president in October 2020. I began digging and uncovered a very suspicious arrangement. The previous president had served for 14 years. She's the current VP. In 2010, she hired her spouse as operations manager. That operations manager, he gets paid $1,600 a month, roughly 20% of our association's revenue. Now, this expense and arrangement had never been disclosed to the community from everything that I've seen. The annual audit does not detail it, the quarterly treasurer's reports don't detail it, and when directly asked to give a verbal breakdown of monthly expenses during a meeting, the HOA pres somehow forgot to include her husband's paycheck, the largest monthly expense. Now, I've been able to access bank statements going back to 2015, and there are monthly payments of at least $1,600 going back to that time. There's also a period that they paid their daughter $200 a month for social media management. Our bylaws require the president and the treasurer sign every check. This has not been adhered to. The former president signs every check herself. When I tried to delegate a task to our operations manager, I was told it was not in his contract. I began requesting said contract over the course of the next 3 months. I was told that they'd get it to me, but they did not until yesterday. I was finally given the contract. It was in a manila envelope with a sticker reading confidential across the front. What? So each page has a confidential sticker also on the top. I was told this is the original and I'd have to return it. Now, it gets weirder. The effective date on the contract is September 2020, 1 month before I was elected. I don't have any proof at the moment, but I find it very hard to believe this contract existed before I started asking for it. The contract was signed by the operations manager and the 3 previous board members, 2 of which are still current members. There's no dates listed with the signatures. Now, as a side note, the former president and previous board members, they're close. A Golden Girls type of situation. The term of the contract is for 3 years and can only be canceled by a unanimous decision by the board. Our bylaws state that a simple majority of the board can make any decision. I have access to the HOA email, and I found no record of the board approving this decision. I've not looked into previous meeting minutes to see if it was officially approved. I just have a hunch that it wasn't, but a unanimous decision of the board can be made at any time. I've also not found any indication of a contract that predates the 921. This whole situation reeks, and I'd very much like to end the contract and get rid of the board member. Any thoughts? Do you agree with this? The contract cannot override the bylaws. You need a majority of the board behind you to do anything, but this is clearly embezzlement. Yeah, this whole thing looks really shady. If you had a lawyer that could detail and go in and check out every one of these points, then maybe that HOA would be shaking in their boots. What do you think? What would you do? HOA Karen put a lien on my house, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you find out what happens to that HOA, and I'll see you there.